Hey there, in this video we're looking at bivariate data. So this comes from your subject matter, bivariate scatterplots. It gives you the clue there just in that those two words. So by the end of this lesson we're going to construct a scatterplot using the bivariate data, and you're going to do that based on the features that you know of bivariate data. So bivariate data is two variables. So if we have a look here, the day that we have, so we might just pick today's date, which is the 28th, or the weekend's date, which is going to be the 2nd of May. So for this date, we can record the amount of snow fallen, and that might be in millimeters, and we can record also the number of skiers. One piece of data, two pieces of data. By. That's what it means by two variables or bivariate data. So these two things have a relationship, and one of them we need to decide whether one is the independent or the dependent variable. So your independent variable is the thing that will change regardless, whereas the dependent variable is going to be the thing that changes as a result of the independent variable. So if we have a look at the amount of snowfall and the number of skiers, if we have a bit of a thought experiment here, if I'm running a ski lodge and there's no snow, there'll probably be no skiers. But if there's lots of snow, there'll be lots of skiers. So the number of skiers is the dependent variable, whereas the snowfall is something that is changing without our influence. The snowfall obviously is based on weather factors and whether or not it snows on. So that's how it's the independent variable. Now, if we have a look here, you can always do this check, and if it makes sense, like it sounds like it sounds right, then generally that's your that's how you know that you've got them in the right order. So does snowfall depend on the number of skiers? Well, no, not really. But does the number of skiers depend on how much snow falls? Yes. So that's how you can also check. So does dV depend on IV? And if it makes sense, then that's how you recognize which one is the dependent and independent variable. Now these two variables can be plotted on a scatter plot. The independent variable, so a scatter plot has certain conventions, and that means that your independent variable is always the variable that goes on the x-axis. So independent variable using our skiers and our snowfall, the depth of snow, so that's our independent variable. Remember, it's changing, whereas the number of skiers at the resort or the location will definitely depend on the amount of snow. And in this topic, we're looking at that type of relationship. And then when you plot the point, so when you would have your data, you would have your data set. It might look something like this. I'm going to draw a really rough table. It might have snowfall in millimeters or meters in this case, and then the number of skiers. So if we have a look down here, there's like half a meter of snow, 0.5, and there's only 100 guests, or 105. We have like 0.75, and we have probably about 300, so there's 200, so about 250 guests, and so forth. Conventionally, based on like what you did in other lessons as well with a table of values, you would have your snowfall. This is another way to construct it. Snowfall in meters and the number of skiers. And the table would be that way, and you'd have your data set like that. So then that way, that's another way of also recognizing that the independent variable is your X and your dependent variable is your Y, because it's set up like an XY table or table of values. So let's construct a scatter plot using the data here. So we might be like, well, I don't know which one is the independent and dependent variable. The clue straight away is note that the independent variable is always the top one, and the dependent variable is always the bottom row. So that's just convention. So this is, I'm just going to put that in red. So this is your x-axis, this is your y. So what we're going to do is have a look at our numbers. I can see 175. Actually, they've been put in ascending order, so that makes it a lot easier. And then we are going to construct this graph. So I'm going to do it manually. So I'm just going to set up some grid lines here. So I've set up a grid line here, my x and y axis, and I'm just trying to, y. So again, this is your y axis, this is your x. And I've tried to mark out so that they're decently spread out without obviously going off the screen. So let's just label our axes here. We've got mass, and it's measured in kilograms. And we've got height, and it's measured in centimeters. So obviously I would label that along 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. You'll notice that I haven't like measured out all of these. I'm just measuring out 10, 20, 120 there, 140, 160, 180. Huh. Yeah, I guess that's right. So what I've done here for you is I've just measured out the ones that I'm going to use. We could have done the little heartbeat thing where you put a break in the line just so it's still to scale, but I'm just going to leave it like that for now. So what we would do is we would go along and assign our measurements. 120, that's going to be 45 kilos, so there's the 45. If I measure along, there's halfway, so that's 45 there. 50, 100, sorry, 124, so they're about there, and just over it, just under it, and they're 50 kilos, so they'll just go up to the next one, and so forth. You would keep plotting your points out there, so 54, 130, sorry, and then at 54, just underneath it. So instead of watching me do that, I've just moved them out of the way and now I've plotted them on the graph. I've used X's just because it's a bit tricky with this. It wants to keep deleting it when you draw a little hard circle. So that is the graph there. You can see that there is a relationship, or what you can see is that it goes as an upward trend. So the more snow there is, the taller someone is, generally the heavier they are because there's more of them to make up. But not necessarily always, so that's why there's that trend there. So what you're going to do is you're going to pause the video, follow these instructions below, construct 2 scatter plots, one for history and geography and temperature in a cinema. And that is your lesson, constructing scatter plots. All right then, yep, textbook questions, textbook review right there. Okay, thanks for that. Take it easy.